Hey folks, welcome to the second of our Heritage Days Zoom interviews. Just in case you missed it, earlier this week we posted a conversation that Matt Peters hosted with Elshika, international student here at Booth, and her dad who works for the Salvation Army in Sri Lanka. And in the intro to that video, I talked about why we're doing these with this kind of theme and configuration during Heritage Days. So if you missed it and you want to make that connection, I'd suggest going back and checking out that first conversation. But now, on to what we've got today. This conversation is hosted by Kimberly Kakagamak. Kim is the communications specialist at Booth, and it's a good thing. There were some extra technical challenges, and it definitely took a bit of additional effort, but Kim was finally able to connect Japhlet, an international student in his final year here at Booth, with both of his parents who are presently working with the Salvation Army in the western part of Kenya. I'm going to hand this over to Kim and her guests, who will tell you lots more about all of that. But watch for themes in this conversation about what it's like to be separated by thousands of miles and yet still have a strong sense of connection through family and shared faith and a shared sense of purpose and a commitment to making the world a better place for everyone. All right, enjoy.
Yeah, we are in Kenya, in the western part of Kenya. Actually in a town called Eldoret.
Okay.
That's where the Salvation Army Officers Training College is based. Like you did mention, I'm Major Julius Omukomyi. I'm a Salvation Army officer and the training principal of the Salvation Army Officers Training College here in Kenya. And you meet Major Gaudenci. She's my wife, but she's the director for special services at the Officers Training College. So we have our students, we call them cadets here. And we are proud to have them. I'm a father of 4 children. My firstborn is Japhlet Lolo, you can see him somewhere.
Yes,
yeah, that's me.
he is
That's me over here.
Good, and then we have our second-born girl. She's called Berit, and our third-born girl, she's called Mercy, and our last-born boy is called William.
And are they in different places around the world? Japhlet's here in Winnipeg. Are your other children in different places, or are they there in Kenya?
Yeah, our children, they are here in Kenya, but our second-born Berit, she's in the capital city of Nairobi. She's studying, actually she's doing her master's degree in community development, in particular specializing in monitoring and evaluation. And our third-born, who is Mercy, she's doing her diploma in hospitality management at Kabarak University, somewhere in the Rift Valley part of Kenya. And then our last born, he is in boarding school. He's a candidate. He will be writing his final exams in primary next month. So the 3 of them are here with us in Kenya, but Japhlet is in Winpark. We are missing him.
Yes, no doubt. And Japhlet, maybe I'll just have you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, so my name is Japhlet Lolo, as you already heard, and I'm a student here at Booth University College. I'm doing my social work degree program in my last year now. So I'm looking forward to be graduating in April. Yeah, it's been 4 years in Winnipeg. The cold is not fun, but I've survived. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cold right now. Very, very cold. So we just really wanted to get an idea of what are you facing in Kenya right now with the pandemic and with your work? And also we wanted to maybe hear a little bit about what it's like having Japhlet so far away during this time. So maybe you can just start by talking a little bit about what does the pandemic look like over there?
Thank you very much, Kimberly. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name properly, but
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we are seriously honored, for having us, on your interview. I need to be very honest with you that COVID-19 came at a time when nobody was expecting. And we were actually here at the college last year in March when the news around the world, came very clear that this pandemic was here. And because we were not prepared and nobody was prepared, I can actually attest to the fact that it affected us very seriously. We were forced to close our training college in March 2020, and we were not opened until somewhere in September, where we had just to call one session, but the other session of cadets had to remain back at home. Churches were closed, schools were closed for over 10 months, and the schools just reopened on the 4th of January with the strict conditions. It's not business as usual. So as much as our children have gone back to school, parents are not allowed to go to school. Visitors are not allowed to go to school. So the school has it's a restricted area. So it's a new norm for us because we were used to actually, visiting our children over the weekend, maybe take them, go to talk to them, just have time with them. But nowadays that cannot happen. Another impact that COVID-19 has brought to our country in particular is on the side of health. Our health workers are overwhelmed, and as even we speak now, they are on strike because in the months of December, January, we lost quite a number of very senior doctors and nurses in our major hospitals. And this actually brought a very big issue with the health workers. They don't have enough personal protective equipment. And one of the reasons why they are on strike is that they are requesting that until such a time that the government will be able to supply them with enough protective gear is when they will be able to go back to our hospitals. So in other words, our public health sector, as we speak, it's not functional properly. Now we have a few private hospitals which are very expensive. So for any common citizen cannot be able to manage, especially when they are sick. Another challenge that this COVID-19 brought was that, like I said earlier, most of our experienced senior doctors and nurses actually lost their lives. And it takes huge resources to train a medical doctor. And when we lose these senior doctors, it's not good news for the country. It's not good news for the common citizens, especially majority of these doctors were handling patients who were actually suffering from quite a number of terminal illnesses. And so that has really left a huge gap. Another challenge is that life has changed completely. We no longer interact with people the way we used to do. When it comes to transport sector, people have been asked, and it's now a requirement. You cannot fill a bus, you cannot fill our small combis here. You just, a bus which was taking, say, 52 people, you're only now allowed to carry 20. A combi which was maybe carrying 14 passengers, you are now allowed to carry only 6. And so this has really increased the cost of travel because the owners of these transport vehicles, they have to make a living, and therefore they have actually transferred the extra charges to the passenger who would like to travel. So in other words, I'm saying that traveling in Kenya is now very expensive. Another challenge is that Nairobi is a hub. It's an international airport. It links most of the countries in Africa. But from the time COVID came in, majority of flights were stopped. And up to now, it has not normalized. And therefore, there are many people who have lost jobs, those who used to work at the airports, working for different airlines. And of course, it has not resumed, the flights have not resumed fully as it was before. Another challenge that we're also facing is that we normally start our school calendar in Kenya in January, and it has to go up to the end of the year. So by virtue that COVID came in March, when we had just opened our first term, that year was actually wasted here. So the government is trying to struggle to see how to harmonize the time that was lost, but it's not possible to meet that because it took almost a whole year for this pandemic to start slowing down. And that's why now these pupils and students who are supposed to write the exams last year in October, November, they are being prepared in a very rush way to write the exams next month in March. And yeah, they will be back home to wait until such a time that they'll be told when to join high school. Another challenge that we also face is economically, the country has been affected. A majority of people having lost their jobs, they are not able to take care of their families. So there is a lot of divorce. Marriages are not stable. We are also experiencing a lot of domestic violence. You can imagine a scenario where maybe the husband was the only sole breadwinner, and then because of this pandemic, he loses the job. And there is a big family in Africa. People have big families, and you don't just feed your family, you also take care of the extended family. And so this is posing a big challenge. Now, everywhere also you go, including churches, whether you're going to schools or you're going to shops or to the bank, you're going to the supermarket, there is now a new norm. There's a water tank. You have to wash your hands. You have to use a soap. You have to put on a mask, and you have to sanitize. We were not used to this kind of lifestyle. And also the issue of social distance. So you no longer interact with people freely. And in Africa, we like shaking hands. When you don't shake hands, actually the greeting is not complete, it's incomplete. Secondly, in Africa, when you wash hands, you are assured that you're going to eat something. But nowadays, you have to wash your hands everywhere you go, but there's nothing that is being said before you on the table. So it's a new norm, and many of us and many people are trying to cope with that. So like I did mention earlier, in Africa, we shake hands, and when we shake hands, especially from the tribe where we come from, western part of Kenya, we are Luyas. When you shake hands, you say Mrembe, and Mrembe means peace be with you. So this time, when we find ourselves in this scenario where we cannot be able to shake hands, we don't feel like we are actually preaching peace to our fellow comrades that we interact with on a daily basis. Now, talking personally on my side as the training principal, this COVID-19 has had a great impact on our training. We were just preparing our second year cadets for commissioning, and they were in their final year last year in March when this pandemic came up. So because we had to ask them actually to go home, and we had to employ other means, actually using Zoom and also trying to reach them through WhatsApp and emails, sending them notes and trying to teach them, because again, according to the Salvation Army policy internationally, cadets are not supposed to take more than 2 years in training. And so we had to teach the cadets 2 units outside the campus, but finally they were able to manage. And we had also to go an extra mile to actually take the exams to the nearest divisional headquarters, geographically, just making sure that we had to put the cadets into smaller groups of 10. And we thank God that we managed to give them the exams and they wrote. And I also want to thank God that we managed to prepare them for commissioning, which actually we did on 6th of December 2020. So it's only the second years that we allowed to come in campus, and when they came back on 1st of September, we could not allow them even one day to go outside the campus. We also did not allow visitors to come into the campus. We did not even allow our employees to interact with the cadets, because most of our employees are actually staying outside the campus. And so we had to go some extra expenses by buying thermal guns and of course buying sanitizers. We received some help from international headquarters, where we were able to buy sanitizers, thermal guns, and of course we had to put all these other measures that are required to be used to protect them from COVID-19. We bought enough masks and of course enough soap, and we thank God that none of our cadets was affected by this, because we took serious precautions to ensure that we protect them and we also protect our staff. We thank God that most of our staff, they stay in campus. So I had also, as the training principal, instruct them to minimize traveling, including using public transport. So anybody getting out of campus would only be allowed to use our campus vehicle. And that vehicle will also still be sanitized. And when they come in, they have to be taken their temperatures, and of course not to interact with the rest of the people. I don't know if there's anything else that I can add on that. But economically, our country, our people, and even the Salvation Army was affected very seriously. Like I've said, many people have lost jobs. Most of the businesses have been closed down, even as we speak now, and people are struggling to get their basic needs, talking of shelter, food, and of course, clothing. Another effect of COVID-19 in our country is that we have experienced early pregnancies, because most of our schools closed down in March, and our pupils and students have been at home for over 10 months. And within that period, we have seen many teenagers becoming pregnant. And so we have the challenge of early marriages and among the youth, which is actually a big disadvantage to the parents who are anticipating their children to be in school. But the good news is that the government has made it a policy that all pupils or students who might have become pregnant during this COVID period, they have been allowed actually to go to school. And it's now a requirement. The government is using the local administration to ensure that all the pupils, especially the girls or students who became pregnant, actually they are allowed to go to school so that they can continue with their studies. But anyway, you can imagine the kind of trauma, someone who is expecting a child sitting in the same class with other people who are just okay. And finally, we have the issue of curfew in Kenya now. You are not allowed to go out from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. in the morning. No vehicles are traveling during this period. No human beings are going out. No flights, no nothing. So it's a curfew, which again, we want to commend the government because they took the precautions very early when COVID struck in March. And I think that is why we managed to reduce the number of people who are actually infected by COVID-19. Thank you. Maybe if you have something else to ask, I'm ready, Kimberly.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. That was just so much information, and I'm so thankful that you're willing to share with us. I'll just turn to Japhlet and just ask you, what is it like being a student right now? What is it like being far away from your parents? How often are you able to chat with your folks? Kind of what's your day-to-day life like?
Okay, my day-to-day life. I think I'm very busy. So I think like being busy has kind of like also helped to be able to navigate through this pandemic period. Because I think when you're idle with the pandemic, then it even becomes harsh and tough for you as well. So like this last school year, I'm doing my practicum, and which is like 32 hours a week. So mostly Tuesdays to Fridays, I'll be on my practicum around 8 to 4 p.m. So basically all of my day I'm busy. And then I'm only left with the like evenings to do my schoolwork. And then on the weekends I work. So I have a job with McDonald Youth Services, and so I'll probably be working overnights, or I'll be working during the day, like 12-hour shifts. So basically it's like the whole week I'm very busy and held up. If I'm not at work, if I'm not at practicum, then I'm doing assignments, which has been very tough because you also need that time to interact with friends and just like not be busy and just be socialize with friends, play some games. We normally have some futsal in our school here, we play, but there's no one to do that now. So we're always just in our floors, in our rooms, because we know we don't really interact that much. Though this semester they have loosened up a little bit for the residents, whereby we can be one cohort if you like, so that you can socialize and play games together and all that. But on my hand, I chose my floor to be just one cohort on my floor. So I'm not part of the whole cohort, because I was scared, because if something really happens and maybe someone is a close contact with someone who probably was potentially tested positive, then it makes all of us to quarantine, and that affects my practicum, because that happened last semester, where we had to quarantine for almost a week and a half, and that made me lose hours for my practicum, and I had to make up those hours. So this semester I was very keen to make sure, like, I try to avoid any issues that will lead me to kind of like lose hours of practicum and might make me to start again covering those hours up. Yeah, so that's kind of like how life is. And at this time, I left home in 2017 and have not been able to go back home since then. So this is like my fifth year, and I miss home. It's like there's no place like home. So I miss home. I miss the culture. I miss the food. I miss my family, my parents, my dad and mom, and my siblings. Because also when I was living in 2017, my parents were not in Kenya then. They were in Zimbabwe. So again, there was a time where I was not also again living with my family, because they were in Zimbabwe, and then I moved here. So it's been like a long period of time where like really having that quality time with family hasn't been there. And with the pandemic, you really hope to be with family, because if right now you can't really socialize with friends, so that I think the most comfort you can get is your family. But I'm thankful for technology, because we are always able to interact frequently. We always make sure every week we have a family call, So mostly Sundays. So today is our family call actually. So we
Sure,
always
sure.
call every Sundays.
Yeah.
We always call every Sundays to talk, and we also have like a group chat that we keep each other posted every week on what's going on, and so that's how we kind of like we communicate as a family, and that's how we get in touch with each other. So at least that makes us feel close to each other, just knowing how everyone is doing, how is everyone doing, what projects are we into this week. So yeah, that's how we interact, and I think it's working well so far. Yeah, but I'm really looking forward for when I'll actually travel and go home and visit my family and just have time together and laugh together.
I imagine your parents would agree. They're looking forward to when you are able to go home again.
Definitely,
Sure.
yes. Yes, you're looking forward for that, yeah. We were really hoping, because I'm graduating in April, and we were trusting God that with the graduation, my parents will have like the opportunity to come for my graduation.
Yes.
But now with the pandemic, everything changed, and now the graduation will be virtually, and also with the traveling restrictions, and you have to quarantine, all these issues. So unfortunately, I don't know, but we are praying and we're trusting God, like something will come up. We'll see how when that time comes, how we will handle things. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you were speaking, it reminded me, I thought maybe, Julius, I'd ask you if you could just speak for a minute or two about your faith and how God is uplifting you and your family during this time.
Okay, yeah. So I'm really grateful for, first of all, my parents for bringing me up in the church and bringing me up knowing God. And so I've grown up in church, and I'm always trusting in God all through. So most of the time when you face obstacles, the first person to run to is God. And that's how I've grown up knowing. And also during this pandemic, God is the one I've been trusting into. So you'll find, like, for example, when the pandemic came last year in March, normally, like, summertime is when an international students, you work a lot. That's the time like you get a full-time job, and you can work 2 or 3 jobs just to make sure you raise school fees. And normally at that summertime, I've kind of like been relying on camp, because I normally work at camp, and that's how I get to raise school fees. Because when you work at camp, you are actually enjoying, you're serving, you're still in ministry. At the same time, you still like at least getting some money that will boost you in your tuition fees, and you also get like free accommodation and meals. So that's normally very supportive for me over the summer. But now last year things changed, and I didn't know what exactly was going to happen come that summertime. And so as well, I called my parents, we talked about it, and we always pray. My parents are very supportive in terms of prayer. As much as we are miles away, prayer is what has really like keeps us strong and together, because we always pray to each other. We send each other like prayer requests. And so we prayed for that summer, and God really came through, because at a time when there was a lockdown and people were losing jobs, I actually got a job with now the McDonald's Youth Services, where I'm working right now. I got a job there as a youth care worker, and I also got a second job again at Widmer. So Widmer Co, they had a drop-in center that they were opening, and they needed someone to support there with the clients, and so I also got that job. And so I had 2 jobs this summer that really helped me to raise my school fees come this school year. And that's something that I'm very grateful to God, and also grateful to Booth, because of the scholarships that they offered, and that have really helped me to be able to now to go through this school year successfully without having any issues. And so I believe that's God's doing, God's plan. And I will say that right now I'm successful. I'm finishing school because God has been with me all that far. Yeah, and I fellowship with the Heritage Park Temple Co, and which is also like a very supportive community. during this time, we have like triads where people call in so the congregation member will be calling in to check in to see how things are. The co-officer calls and to see how things are. And also they send emails for prayer requests. So even though we have our church services online, we still get to get prayer requests and people pray. When prayers are answered, the email is sent out again to say like, this is the testimony, the prayers have been answered. And so we get to see God's doing all this time. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And maybe just in our final few minutes here, I'll pose the same question to your parents. Just if you could speak for a couple minutes about your faith and how you're seeing God in the work that you're doing and the people around you.
Thank you. I'll give Major Gaudenci just some few minutes to speak.
Yeah.
Then I'll come over.
Thank you. I'm Major Gaudenci, and I'm the Director for Special Services. And I would like to thank God for saving me. And it's now our 25th years in the ministry as Salvation Army officers. And since we started serving God, we have really seen Him being faithful to us and even to our family and even to our distant family. We thank God because whenever we ask God for something, He's always ready to answer our prayers. And prayer is something which is very important for us as servants of God, because through prayers, we'll see Him answering our prayers, we'll see Him working in our lives and even uplifting us spiritually. I want to thank God because God has given us 4 children, and because of prayer and even having fellowship with them and devotions, we have seen our children also excelling and growing up knowing God. So God is great, and we thank God because for the 25 years, He has been faithful to us. He has uplifted us. We have been out of the country for 6 years in Zimbabwe, and we have really seen God working again, leading us. And now we are back in Kenya again in the training college, Officers Training College. And we thank Him because He's still using us in this ministry. So God is great.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. If there is one thing that I really thank God for, is God giving me an opportunity to acknowledge who Jesus Christ is in my personal life. I come from a background of parents who are not really, especially my dad, who was not very much committed. Of course, he was coming from a Muslim background, and my mother was an Anglican. And so it's only my uncle who brought the Salvation Army in our village. And at a young age of 10 years, I joined Salvation Army, of course, together with the rest of the youth in our area. And it was not easy to fail to attend the mosque where my father used to go. But I thank God that He picked me from that Muslim background and gave me an opportunity to be a Christian, and in particular, taking me to the Salvation Army. I love the Salvation Army. I love the Army spirit. I look at the Salvation Army as the greatest gift that God has given to me in my life. Now, having accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior for over 30 years ago, I don't regret even today. I still have strong faith that the decision I made on the 25th of October in 1987, that was the wise decision I did make. So I am so grateful that God has given us an opportunity to be His servants in the Salvation Army. He put a special calling on my heart, and we were privileged actually to be given an opportunity to train as Salvation Army officers. And the Salvation Army has played a key role in my ministry. I've been able to travel places. The Army has taken me through places. I've been in almost every continent of the world. And the last best gift he has given us is to serve God as missionaries in Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Madagascar territory, where we have had a privilege of preparing and equipping cadets for ministry as Salvation Army officers. And the same responsibility that is still giving us here in the Kenya West territory, we are still in the same business of preparing and equipping cadets for effective ministry. For us, we don't take this for granted. It is a wonderful gift that God has given us. Secondly, I also want to thank God for the gift of a family that fears God. We have tried our level best through prayer and Bible study to nurture and bring up our children, teaching them the Word of God, being role models to them, and of course, sharing with them our personal testimony, because the far that God has brought us as a family, we say He's a Ebenezer. I did not mention that I come from a polygamous family. My father, being a Muslim, had the opportunity to marry. In Africa, people marry many wives. So my father had 15 wives, and my mother was number 3. And so you can imagine that we did not really have a very good chance to interact with our father so much. But I had a great opportunity to interact too much with my mother. And of course, because in our family, we were born 7 boys and 1 girl. The girl was the last born. So I played the role of, a girl in that particular family. And because of that, one of the things that I did make a commitment when I got saved was to ask God to help me so that when I grow up, I would want to give my life to Jesus, to full-time ministry as a Salvation Army officer. And one of the things I did promise God is that I will not want to marry more than 1 wife, because I know and I have the experience and the background of polygamy. Personally, in our family, the effect of polygamy and the challenges that we went through, I actually promised to God that if you give me a chance and I finish my high school and I go to training college, I will want to give my life to full-time ministry and be able to raise a family that fears you.
So sorry to interrupt you, but I think our call is going to end soon.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
So I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing and what you just said about the Salvation Army and how much they mean to you and your family. So
Yes.
just thank you, and thank you, Japhlet. I'm just so grateful for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Yes.
On behalf of everyone that was involved in these projects, thanks for stopping by to watch. And I hope that more than just watching can happen here. If you've enjoyed these conversations, or if they've stirred you in some way, please respond, post about them in whatever space you found them. I'm sure that the participants would be really delighted to know that they connected with an actual human being, not just a screen. In any case, peace to you, and we'll chat again soon.